Welcome back to Blog Access 101. I'm your host, Young Bachi. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify by searching Blog Access 101. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like and comment, subscribe. This is episode 253 for our next Women in Sports segment with our special guest today, Santia Deck, who's a former professional women football player, a philanthropist, as well as an entrepreneur. How you doing, Santia?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Um,
Awesome.
we jump right into it. Just give a brief introduction of yourself and your career in sports.
Sure. So I guess my claim to fame was I made history twice. I was offered the largest contract in women's football. And then in 2020, I made history by becoming the first female athlete to own a shoe company called Tronous. I'm also an influencer, and I recently launched a women in sports media platform. And then I'm also really, really heavy into the NIL space, which I'm extremely excited about. But I always tell people I'm an athlete that happens to be an entrepreneur.
But obviously NIL is definitely becoming a big thing for all collegiate athletes as well as high school. So it's definitely a good avenue to step into. My next question is, who got you into sports?
I started playing sports when I was like 4, which was no, but not too many people know my first sport ever was tennis.
Okay.
And I would always give like the credit to my older brother. I had a twin brother, and he would always push us to be athletic and compete against each other. So I feel like he built up that competitive nature in us. And then I just kind of, randomly kind of got into tennis. My mom thought it'd be a good idea because me and my brother were both very strong. We were too strong though for tennis because we were hitting the ball over the fence. And the trainer was like, "Yeah, I think they should play like softball or something." And then we eventually got into track and field, and the rest was history.
Yeah, it's funny because my mom was a big tennis player, and I always make jokes. I'm like, man, tennis ain't that hard. I went out there one time with her, was hitting the ball, running back and forth. I was like, yeah, I'll never say tennis isn't hard again. Because with track,
Right,
you run it. Well, I don't know, but I will get into it eventually. You ran, but you run, you start your race, you finish it, it's over. Tennis is like
right,
you keep playing, and
forever.
it's eight add point, advantage point, and you keep tying, deucing. It takes forever. That's the worst part of tennis. But yeah, I
Yeah.
learned quick, fast, and hurry. That's step
No,
you gotta
it's
love.
a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah. So you brought up briefly, but talk about your shift from being a track stars at Texas A&M Kingsville, to playing rugby and then being a former professional football player.
Yeah, so I went to Texas A&M Kingsville on a full ride. I ran the 100, 200, and 4x1, sometimes the 4x4, but I would always try to hide because I hated running the 400. Like literally, you have to be a different kind of animal to do the 400. And I had a pretty good career. Unfortunately, I did not make it the Olympic team, which I thought I was gonna make when I was in school. But I still wanted to be an athlete after I was done and I graduated. And one day I saw a flag football sign, and I was like, All my brothers played. They were all running backs. I was out there playing with them sometimes, and I was like, why don't I just give it a try? And so I went out there, like, killed it. I feel like everybody knows, like, the rest is history. That's like what I built my career off of, pretty much. But the most interesting thing was I was going viral, and one day the USA rugby coach reached out to me back in 2017 or 2016. It was like, hey, we saw you like on the internet. You look pretty fast. Do you want to play rugby? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know women could play rugby at that time. He was like, yeah, we will teach you the entire like game and everything. And I was like, cool. So next thing I know, I'm on an airplane to the Olympic Center in San Diego. And I get there, he gets fired like as soon as I land, right? And so I'm just out there and they're like, why are you here again? And I was like, I got invited. And they were like, yeah, the new coach was like, no, we're looking for somebody that actually knows how to play. And then that was that. Few years passed, got back into playing flag, and then eventually I kept seeing all these amazing rugby videos. And I said, you know what? Let me try to actually learn the game. Learned the game, ended up playing for 2 years, got to go international. I practiced, and actually went to New Zealand and I went to Australia to actually wait, hold on, let me back up. New Zealand, and I went to London, and I actually got a chance to like learn like that's like the origin of rugby out there. And it was really cool. I was supposed to make the Olympic team. I was hopeful, got injured as soon as I got a chance to actually perform in front of the actual coach. And that kind of ended my career there. And then I got into tackle football a little bit. And I, of course, still playing flag.
Obviously, a rugby is definitely different beast, same animal.
Yeah,
Yeah, one thing about rugby, male or woman, like they definitely hit pretty hard. So, I
yeah.
always thought it was pretty interesting to watch. I never want to go out there and try it, but uh,
It's actually really fun, and believe it or not, it's safer than football, like American football.
yeah, and it's pretty cool. But also, I know you brought up another funny part, what you're saying you try to run away from the 4x4. I definitely understand that because I was definitely a 400-meter runner. I
Okay,
hated it, even though I was good at it. It was just like, man, it's like. It's like super painful, and then the worst thing is that 4x4 is always the last. Like I was had to work this track meet the other day, and I told my pop, I was like, "Man, I'm glad I just had to do field events because I wasn't trying to sit
man.
around and sit that 4x4 to the last meet." But
Yeah, it's rough, but I kudos to 400 runners for sure.
yeah, definitely. But you talked about a great point about your video with them seeing your speed. That's why I tell people about the power of the internet. You only take about one or maybe even two videos to go viral, and only one person, it takes one person to see it, the
Mhm.
right person, and I can take you on to the next level. So that was pretty interesting.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
s- so in your opinion, what was your biggest moment in sports thus far?
man. Um, that's tough. I feel like I had some
You
pretty
got a lot.
like awesome. I think the most memorable, I would say, like just opportunity that came from sports was like actually going to the combine, like the NFL combine. And I got to actually go through like the drills and stuff, and it was really cool. Like not to say it looks easy, but I didn't know it was so difficult. And their schedule at the combine is nuts. Like
Yeah,
they
Pack,
don't
yeah.
really get a lot of rest. So I think getting to actually be there, experience that. I got to interview Sierra and Russell Wilson because of flag and like what I've been able to do. Um, I like a lot. There's been a lot of amazing moments, but I would say I think that, and then just like actually being out there on the field, I would say definitely like traveling around the world for rugby, and competing at a high level would probably by far be one of my like dopest experiences as an athlete.
Obviously stepping out of the comfort zone from track and then go playing obviously with rugby, and then also I know that was pretty lit interviewing Sierra and then Russell Wilson, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
How was the combine experience? I know because I hear a lot of stories about that where you obviously don't get no sleep, you're delirious, they ask you nonstop questions, like that. I know that
Yeah.
was always fun for the athlete. But what was your experience? I know you said you was able to go around.
Yeah, well, thank goodness, like I didn't actually go through like the full experience. I just got to like to go and try things. I did like the 40 and I did like the bench press and the vert jump and all these different things. And it was really fun, really cool. I was out there with Kevin Hart's trainer, he's hilarious. And it was just like a very like interesting opportunity. And I to this day, I think I'm the only female that got to really do that. So just shout out to the NFL for like believing in me. So it was really cool.
Pretty lit though.
Mm.
So now just transpired down to back in 2020. What went through your mind? Were you the first woman to be offered a multi-million-dollar deal with the LA Flames?
It was awesome. Like I had just come back or come off of like trying to make the Olympic team for rugby. So I was like going through honestly like a little depression because I worked a full year, trained a full year, like pushed past injury and to get to the point to where like I was almost there and then like, I got injured. It was tough. But probably a few months later I got that call. They actually called my mom and told my mom like this is what we want to do with her. And I was at the movie theaters with one of my friends, and like my mom was like, "Where are you at?" And I was like, "The movies." And she was like, "You need to get out the movies and call me immediately, but make sure you're sitting down." And I was like, "Okay." Um, so I called her, and she was like, "They want to offer you blah 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 blah," and I was like, "What?" Like million, like a million? And there she was like, yeah. And I was like, whoa. And so literally like mind blown. Literally like put out a press release, I think like few weeks later, life changed. My life changed overnight. I went on Kelly Clarkson's show. I was doing all types of different things. Unfortunately, the league did not make it past COVID. You know, you can Google the reasons why. But it didn't make it, so I didn't unfortunately get the money. You got to touch the field first. But it was still a cool opportunity, and I can always say I was offered the largest contract, even though it didn't go into play.
Still, I know like that was thinking run through your mind when your mom said make sure you're sitting down because that's like the worst thing to hear from
I
you
know,
when your
right? I'm like,
parents
did
like
somebody die? Like, what
right.
happened?
Especially like gotta get out the movies and call me right now. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
anxiety going through the roof.
for sure. Literally.
But I know you talked about like bouncing back from injuries. Obviously, what are your thoughts on the importance of mental health for athletes? Obviously, recovering from injuries. Obviously, we just saw Juju walking yesterday, tore
Yeah,
ACL. I knew it was. I didn't want to say it in the chat yesterday, but anytime you see an athlete fall when it's not too much contact and grab their knee, it's
ACL.
never a good sign.
Yeah.
But like, what are your thoughts to like athletes, particularly women athletes as well as male athletes? Like, how important is mental health when you're trying to recover from the injuries?
Man, crazy thing. I actually tore my right ACL 3 years ago. And so like I know like that whole entire process and it sucks. I would say like mental health is something that I feel like it's getting a lot more coverage. It's getting taken serious, a lot more, I would say, these last few years. But I know when I was going through it, like I was not in a good place. Like I was severely depressed. I had man, I just had just imposter syndrome, just everything that you can think of. My entire identity was being an athlete. I had never not had a summer where I played a sport since I was 4. So like that was the first summer that I didn't do anything, and I felt like I was dying. And it just was very dark. And I try to always be transparent. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, it was easy. Like it was one of the hardest moments, darkest moments of my life. But if I didn't have God, if I didn't have my family, my mom especially, she took care of me the entire time, I wouldn't have been able to get through it. But I would say like check on your friends, your family that are athletes that go through injuries because unless you are an athlete, you don't understand like the ripping of like your soul that happens when you go through injury because it's like this is all I am. This is all I know. And like luckily I had a brand. I still had opportunities to like be involved in sports but not actually physically play. But the athletes that are just athletes and they don't focus on anything else, like to them it's like who am I? And they need that support, they need that reassurance from their friends and family and coaches that hey, I know this sucks, you're going to get through it, but you're still an amazing human. Like you're still good at this thing, you're still a good artist, a good rapper, whatever it is they want to be in life. But that's why I believe parents should also pour into their kids and say, hey, I know you want to be this basketball player, but what else do you want to be? And find that out early and nurture that too. Don't just nurture that the fact that they're an athlete, nurture the other things that they're good with because at some point in life it's going to end. Whether you get injured, you get cut, you get old, it's going to end. And they need to have that plan B in order to, sustain them and just mentally be okay. And I think that's lacking a lot in sports.
Yeah, because you see a lot of these athletes, pro or just people that play at high school level, never makes it to college. I'm just a researcher dealing with athlete identity. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people have suffered, like you talk about, suffer from identity crisis after not playing sports anymore because they didn't have any other avenues that they
Yep.
worked on. Which I always think is the issue. Which is why I was like, thankfully, like my parents pushed me to be just as good of an athlete, but also as good of a student as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, like you said, sports is not always going to be there. Eventually, you get older, you got to retire. I mean, Bron's still playing at 40, but how many players are really actually like that? Um,
Not a lot.
yeah, so it's like, yeah, you got to enjoy the moment while it's here, but you also got to prepare for life after, which I like to see where a lot of more athletes, particularly athletes of color, are preparing for life after sports and their families are instilling that into them as well.
Yeah.
Also, I'm glad you brought up the Tour ACL because I was about to bring that up next. I know you were talking about that where you had a meeting with Mike Vick and you were sad due to your torn ACL, but you had the tryout, but you weren't able to play because you recovered from the injury, and you already
Yeah.
talked on about recover from it. But what were some thoughts going through your mind just at that moment, like big moments right there, and then an unfortunate injury happens, because that's always an athlete's like worst nightmare.
Yeah. No, it was man, thoughts you shouldn't think is what I would say.
Yeah,
I was thinking at that time, to be honest. And I don't know how to explain it. I think it's almost like PTSD. Like that's the best way I can explain it is like I remember it took me so long to actually accept it. My mom was like, "You," like I remember I tore it, and then the next day I was like, "Oh, I got to go to practice." Mom was like, "What are you talking about? Like you have a torn ACL?" And I was like, "No, no, no, I'm good." She was like, "Santia, you literally can't do anything. Like you can barely walk." I was like, "No, I'm gonna be fine." Like, and she was, and I literally could not like comprehend that I tore my ACL. It took me like probably 2 weeks to be like, "Oh, I'm actually injured." And so, I don't know. It was just rough. Like I don't know how to explain it other than like I was taking it second by second. I couldn't even do minute by minute. It was like I just had to take it second by second. I had to do a lot of praying. Um, I just felt like I was having an outer body experience. I think that's another way to explain it because I just couldn't believe that it was me. Like I was like, maybe they thought it was me, but it's actually somebody else. But I'm like, and then it just hit me one day, and I'm like, dang, like I really can't play. And like, what am I gonna do now? Because I had the whole celebrity football game thing with Mike Vick. I was supposed to be on the Super Bowl commercial. I was supposed to be in a Coca-Cola commercial for the Super Bowl. I was supposed to go to Italy, couldn't do that. And I was like, God, you're kidding me. Like, these are the biggest moments of my entire career, and I can't do this. And I just couldn't accept it until I did. But it took me a while. So that's why like I don't take injury lightly. When athletes say like I'm hurting, I really understand what that means because it's like you're getting stabbed a million times. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because a lot of these sports fans that was really non-athletes, or I like to call them bench warmers when they played at best at their little high school or middle school level. They don't understand. Like, obviously, of course, athletes have a lot of injury. They be like, "Oh, they get all paid all this type of money to play through it," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, they're still human and they still have injuries. And you have torn meniscus, and a lot of these athletes playing through stuff that, like the average person definitely couldn't pay through, or like,
Uh,
like in the Super Bowl, and people like, oh, he wasn't really hurt, and it's like, yeah, it's like kind of disrespectful, because it's like,
you just gotta know those people. I
yeah,
don't pay
because
attention to them.
yeah, 'cause it's like they strain a calf or something, they crying or something, but they damn sure not playing with a pulled hamstring. Um,
Nah, not at all.
but yeah, let's jump to the next topic. What are your thoughts on the growth of women's sports over these past few years?
Oh man, it's been tremendous. I've been super excited to just see every aspect of women's sports growing right now. At first, of course, it was only basketball that was really like doing it, but now it's volleyball, it's hockey, it's track and field, it's every sport right now. It's taking off, getting funding. Merch sales are out the roof right now. Ad spins with women athletes are out the roof right now. So just seeing that women's sports isn't just like a knockoff version of men's sports now. I well to some people that's what they say, which is crazy. But to see that we're here and we're actually like putting money in people's pockets and the ROI is actually there. According to all these people that said it wasn't before, has been beautiful. And I think I saw a post that said women's sports should reach 1.8 billion this year, which is really exciting because we were barely crossing 1 billion, I think, a few years ago. But it just goes to show that like we're here to stay. Women's sports is like not just a trendy thing; it's like a lifestyle now. Um, and I can't wait to. And women's flag football is like taking off like crazy now too. It's an Olympic sport now. Um, so I'm just beyond excited to be a part of it, to have been here to see it, and I can't wait to like one day when I have a daughter be like, hey, like I lived through the whole like season of when women's sports was like being disrespected constantly, and I got to see when it took off, and now like it's at 20 billion now or whatever, wherever it's gonna be at that time. So I'm just excited. Like it's a beautiful time to be a female athlete.
Most definitely, and it's definitely good to see. Like, obviously, flag football become an Olympic sport, and also you see now it's being played more at high schools now. Because even in my neighborhood, they had the team on there, and they just had a brand new field, the high school. So now they got the women's high school football team in flag football, which is pretty cool. But also, I was happy to see that Unrivaled was a success because I don't know a lot of these haters was hoping it
Yeah.
would fail. But as you see, when you actually put time and money into something, and resources, given the proper resources, you see what can happen. Obviously, a lot of these WNBA players didn't have to go overseas to get the money that they respectfully deserved. It was paying most of them was getting paid over 220,000. I think
Yep.
what the average salary in the WNBA was like 75K. I was just talking to
Yep.
my one of my friends, and she's a
Hmm.
professor, and I'm just like, that's like an account manager at Enterprise or something is making. It's like these are
Right.
professional athletes. Like this is crazy.
It's nuts. It's nuts. But it's beautiful. Like, yeah, like Unrivaled was, I think, like one of the biggest tests. And to your point, like now people can't say like, oh, you need more than just money. Like you need more than just resources. No, like they had money and resources. They had amazing athletes. You put all that together, you're gonna get a good product. But I feel like, that's a whole nother tangent I can go on. But yeah.
So I feel like, to me personally, you can let me know your thoughts. I feel like women's sports do much better job than men doing the storytelling to like get you
Yeah.
connected with the athlete. Whereas like like a Brittany Sykes, we hear her story, see how like she bounced around the league, and now she's like one of in my opinion, one of the best defenders in the WNBA. So it's obviously getting nice to connect with her. But typically we don't really know like role players in the NBA. Well, we do about some, but we don't really hear about too much about their story. So I think that's pretty interesting what they do. But now,
Absolutely.
yeah, let me jump to evolution of winning her way. I see you're focusing on getting, women high school and collegiate athletes NIL deals, but I think it's pretty interesting. But also, another point that I like where you're coaching the parents as well, which is definitely a key, because everybody needs to understand the laws and obviously make sure getting the right deal, not just taking any deal because it's coming to you. And what they say, all money isn't good money.
All right.
So yeah, walk me through that with winning her way.
Yeah, so Winning Her Way started off, and still is it's a sports media platform dedicated to female athletes, and we help them with empowerment, economic opportunities, and visibility. And we do that by and I'm pretty sure you probably saw our website. Like we have tons of articles going out every day covering women that are popular and maybe not so popular that you should know about though. And then we also have our social medias where we're constantly putting out content around women's sports on every level, all around the world. So giving people in places like, Nigeria or Kenya, an opportunity to be seen, and then we interview them as well live. And then what we recently did this year was we jumped into the NIL space, which I've been in for a while. I just didn't get to dive into it as much as I wanted to because I was focused on my shoe company. But this was the year for me. And we started in January, and we now have over 1,000 subscribers already to our newsletter, where we literally put out education 3 times a week, and then we send out NIL opportunities from brands that I've partnered with, so that athletes can actually apply and potentially get NIL deals. And also now what we're doing is we're going to schools and we're educating athletes. We're doing workshops where we're teaching them how to create content that gets ROI for brands. Because at the end of the day, if you want an NIL deal, but you want it to double or become long term, you got to make the company money, right? And so I'm teaching them how to do that, and also doing some other really cool things. But NIL is a very wild, wild west space. And there's so much confusion, there's so much noise, and the amount of parents that come to us like, where do we start? Like my kid is 14, and I'm like, you need to be focused on building their brand, like because that's what's gonna matter when it comes to NIL. Of course, you can being a good player is top of the line. Like we want that player to be amazing, but if you're not, but you've been able to build a really interesting, unique brand, you can still get NIL deals. So we teach them how to do that. We teach them how to go about it. There's rules, there's regulations, there's compliance. We help them navigate that because it's different in every state, every school, and it's been beautiful. We've already helped a few athletes get NIL deals, and we are about to launch our athlete accelerator program, where we have 14 athletes that we're going to take through a 6-week program and help them build a brand, help them like build a brand to attract NIL opportunities, and then we're going to help them at the end of it get NIL opportunities. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm super excited about it. And I just understand this space in a unique way because I've done it on a very high level. And I know what these brands are looking for too because I have a shoe company. So I understand the business side. So it's like a perfect marriage, and I've been loving it. It's been really cool.
Because I feel like they get the best of both worlds from you. Obviously, you being an athlete, as former athlete, as well as like you talk about being a business owner. So you know how what the business is actually looking for in the athletes from your own lens. But I definitely think it's great that what you're doing is like teaching the parents as well, because they definitely need to be educated on this thing so that anybody doesn't get a raw deal. Um, Also, one of the things I also saw that you talk about on your newsletter is, a lot of athletes think you got to be this big time athlete or have a huge following. I see you talked about sometimes when a lot of these brands are looking for athletes, yeah, the big following is cool, but they also want to have players that have engagement. Because let's say they only have 1,000 followers, but you got a lot of comments, people responding and comment on it. That's definitely a good look for what these companies looking at.
Absolutely. That's actually all that matters nowadays. And actually the smaller following athletes are getting a lot more deals sometimes than these bigger athletes because one, like you said, engagement is everything. A lot of these athletes that are at huge schools and their schedules are insane, they don't have a lot of time to dedicate to posting, let alone like engage, like respond to DMs, respond to comments. Um, and that's an advantage that I feel like Division 2, Division 3, JUCO, NIA have is not to say that their schedules aren't busy because they are, but the fact that you're able to probably dedicate a little bit more time to really nurturing your following because you're not, I would say, like a superstar athlete. You don't have, the things that unfortunately a lot of those bigger athletes have. A lot of them have restrictions because they have agents and they have all these other things that like unfortunately go into building a brand, like and actually being, I would say, someone that feels, how do I say it? Like you feel like you're touchable, like meaning like, oh, I can relate to you. Like, you're down the street from me. Like you're actually engaging with the community. You're coming to the local smoothie shop and actually, bringing your teammates and loving our smoothie. So like, I would love to give you an NIL deal. So like, just being someone that can kind of move around a little bit easier, be a little more fluid. I think that plays a role in who these brands work with. But also, I feel like they put in more effort because they're not at these bigger schools that unfortunately they're spoiled a lot of the times, so you have to work a little bit harder. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a key. Obviously, these big time D1 guys or women at the top levels. I'm like, well, yeah, like I deserve this. Whereas like a D3 or D2 students be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna work for this. So I definitely see what you're getting from there. Which
Yeah.
brings to the next question. I know you talked about it briefly. What level should athletes start looking for NIL deals, and how can they market themselves to in-state companies as well as out-of-state companies? I know you said just as you said to the parents before, just start focusing on building that brand. But did you want to elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so at what age I would say like I would start if I had children right now, I would literally start really focusing on their brains in middle school. Because once they get to the high school level, that's when the doors open up and they can get these opportunities. And it's a little hard to like become a ninth grader and then be like, oh, I want NIL deal, so let me start focusing on my brand because it takes time to build a brand, right? So I would say start focusing on that when your child is in middle school, sixth grade even, and really just start focusing on, okay, let's make sure that we're investing in some good like photos, videos, good videos that have good quality. Let's tell their story. Let's figure out like what is going to be their unique aspect, meaning like, okay, am I a football player that's also focused on helping the homeless, or am I a gymnast that's also heavy into veganism and animal rights? Like, what is that thing that's going to make you stand out amongst all of the other athletes in your sport, and hone in on that? Also, learning how to post consistently. I'm not saying to post all day, every day, but figuring out, okay, on Sundays, I know I got school the next day. I know I probably don't have much to do on Sunday, so I'm going to use this day to shoot. I'm going to shoot like 5 posts a day, 5 videos, and then schedule them out on Instagram. You can schedule them, or you can use other platforms, and then you're done. And then maybe every day you can post a story or 2 stories about, hey, I'm in practice. This is what I learned, or hey, I just went to this area and I gave away 5 plates of food to homeless people. Whatever it is, but that's when you can really engage with people. It really become human, like humanize you more so than just being this amazing athlete, but show more than just I'm an athlete. Who else are you? When I take away the football player, the gymnast, who are you? That's going to be the brand that sustains you. That's going to be the brand that allows you to get opportunities when you're done because you've been building it since you were in middle school. So you have more to offer a brand.
And also separate them from the competition. A lot of people like that was a great point. Like, who are you outside of the athlete? And a lot of people, honestly, even adults, probably couldn't even answer that question. So,
Yep.
if young kids are able to answer the question and show and actually show proof, this is the other, this is more than just an athlete. You definitely can make them stand out. My next question is, where do you see winning her way 5 years from now?
So, man, that's a great question. I would love for Winning Her Way, the sports media platform, to be the next ESPN. But we're covering more than just what's happening nationally. We're going internationally. And then for our NIL arm, I would love for our programs and like our education and all the things that we're currently doing and building to be in as many, if not all, colleges here in America, and also be pretty much being at a place to where like I'm able to travel to these different schools, almost like a tour, and give these workshops that I'm giving, and also be able to leave schools with either like a educational program, something that I'm licensing and giving to them to really utilize on their own without me there. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to educate as many people as possible and allow these schools to be self-sufficient to where they don't have to do everything on their own. It's almost like the kids come in, they log into this program and they learn everything that they need to learn. And then I just kind of come in and just make sure that they're utilizing it right.
That's definitely big. Getting into these schools, obviously giving educational NIL deals so they can be even better prepared going into it at the collegiate level. Because obviously right now, it's a lot of gray areas. Some companies try to do some shady deals, but they don't got really a contract, and which is a no-no. But a lot of these young athletes don't know. They just see the money. It's like, oh, let me just sign one. Yeah, you got to be careful what
Exactly.
you sign because sometimes they come back to hurt you in the long run. Um,
Exactly.
so yeah. Well, the next question is, what are your thoughts on equal pay for women?
Um, I mean, I think it should be a thing. Um, I think I think we're gonna get there one day. I always have to tell people, because at first I was that person. I was like, it should happen today. Like, why are we getting paid the same? But we all know the long history of the NBA and the NFL and how long it took them to get to where they currently are. The WNBA is not that old. A lot of these leagues are not that old. We literally have new leagues that are happening that just launched this year. So you can't expect the same exact thing from leagues that have been around for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or more. Um, and so I just feel like it's time. I feel like time is going to help us get there. I think as we continue to build up our fan base, continue to build up the merch sales and getting the TV deals and things that actually equate into revenue, then we can talk about that. But the leagues have to make money so that the athletes can be paid. If the leagues aren't making money, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get any money. So we have to just make sure that we're doing all that we can, continue doing what we're doing, continue watching, continue supporting, continue getting your daughters, involved in sports so that they can one day be a part of the league. But I think it's just going to take time. Like at this point, like we can no longer say like we don't have a good product, which we've always had a good product, but now people can't deny it. So I think it's just going to take time.
It's definitely the ratings showing. I remember they were talking about college basketball. I'm like, the people like, oh, they don't watch college basketball, March Madness. I'm like, they just had 9.3 million for the Elite Eight with
More than
Caitlin
enough.
Clark and Angel Reese and LSU. I'm just like, yeah, people definitely watching it.
They're watching.
Uh, and there's a lot of big time storylines, obviously, with South Carolina. I feel like Dawson and feel like they got wrong for not being the outright number one seed. So that's another story to watch. Page Records, farewell tour at UConn. So,
Yep.
there's a lot of things to watch, not just in women's college basketball. As we see, obviously, we always knew women's softball was always a big thing in college level, and it's to continue to grow as well. And obviously,
Volleyball's
volleyball,
taking off. Yeah.
yeah, with Nebraska selling out the football stadium, which was pretty cool. Um,
Hmm.
so obviously, a lot of these haters can't say anything now because once you have evidence to back, like I tell people all the time, you can't have you can have your own opinions. I mean, you can't. I said you can have your own opinions, but you can't make up your own facts. So,
Numbers don't lie. I mean, at the end of the day, like the numbers are the numbers, and billionaires are literally investing now. We now have all these celebrities and celebrity athletes coming to the games where before you would never see anybody in the stands. So like it's happening. The revolution is happening. It's just a matter of time. I mean, that's what I say.
Yeah, you brought up a great point. The WNBA started in '96. People acting like it started in the '70s or '50s and stuff. It's like you gotta give stuff
My
time to work
point.
and
Like I
find
think
it.
rugby for men started in like the 1900s or something, like the
Yeah, it's like
1910s or something crazy like that. So like you gotta like people have to understand like all this stuff is new. Like in you know what I'm saying? So like I just truly believe that it's gonna be bigger and bigger and bigger investments coming. There's gonna be bigger players coming in and really like pouring in the resources that we need. It's already happening. So imagine where we're gonna be in the next 5 to 10 years.
definitely. Jumping to my next question. Talk about your shoe company, Tronous, and how has everything been going, and where do you expect it to go in the future, and where can people find it at?
Yeah, so Tronous, it like I said, it launched in 2020, during like literally in the middle of the pandemic. And it was honestly something that kind of fell in my lap because I was an influencer for another shoe company and I was doing so well selling their shoes that they offered me an opportunity to have my own shoes. And at first it was a signature line. Then my mom came in and said, no, she needs her own company, not something under you.
No,
And
that's right,
so
man.
yeah, right. My mom is she's a shark. So but it ended up turning into like my actual own shoe company. One of the designers actually came over from that company to our company. And we had a heck of a run. And we're still doing our thing right now. I've actually stepped down as CEO to focus on what I'm doing right now in NIL and women's sports. But my mom is not the CEO. She was a COO. And she's doing some really cool things, and she's really, really focused on like recovery, making sure that athletes are wearing the right shoes and recovering properly after their games. Because at the end of the day, that's what keeps you in the game. How you recover is more important than honestly what you do in the gym. So we are hoping to get into the sport specific very soon, where we create our own cleats and our own soccer shoes and our own volleyball shoes. But that takes time. I now understand why it's so little people in that space because my goodness, the the amount of stuff you have to go through to perfect it. Because if Caitlin Clark wears my basketball shoes and twists her ankle, I'm done. So we have to we're really big on making sure it's perfect. But when it comes out, it's gonna be amazing. So yeah, we have a lot in store. I don't want to say everything, but just stay tuned.
I got hold something back. I feel it. But no, talk about your book, More Than an Athlete. What motivated you to write it, and where can people find it?
Yeah, so I wrote More Than an Athlete when I was going through my ACL
Mhm.
situation. And it was literally just like telling my story about how I got to where I was and kind of where I was going. And I just poured everything I had into it. And it for anyone who is like trying to figure out um, who am I outside of this? Okay, and once I'm done, what I'll do next, or while I'm playing, how do I capitalize off of that? That's pretty much what my book is for, is to kind of be a guide for these athletes and maybe parents of athletes, because everything is not peachy keen the entire time you're an athlete, and you need someone who has done it successfully and navigated it successfully to really be able to help your athlete through that. And even as a parent who might not have played or whatever, this is just a good guide for them. But you can find it on Amazon. It's also on in Barnes and well, not in, but on their website, Barnes and Noble. And yeah, it's More Than an Athlete by Santia Deck.
Obviously, sometimes, it's perfectly parents that haven't played sports. You don't know how to, obviously, they know how to be a parent, but you don't know how to talk someone out of it, like depression from not being able to play anymore or having to recover from the injury. You don't know if you're going to be able to bounce back or having to re-injure the same injury again. And now you're just frustrated. It was like, dang, I did everything with the physical therapy, the recovery, the icing, the stretching, things of that nature. Then it still happens. So it's, obviously, so I think that it's a great book to write for parents to understand like how to deal with that, especially if they weren't athletes like you talked about. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No problem. Where can people find you on social media, and you have in your closing remarks?
You can find me pretty much on every platform at Track Baby 001. So it's like run track baby 001. You can also go to santiadeck.com and then winningherway.com. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning into my interview. I hope you guys got some good nuggets. And I'm excited to potentially come back.
Appreciate you having you on, Santia.
Of course.